safe space. We ain't never give a reason you should hide. Compile all your questions, we're taking the quest. Join Tarcia on this journey to discover the rest. Go.
Welcome to the Adoption Journey podcast. I am your host, Tarcia Smith. And before I get started, let me remind you to go to Patreon and make sure you go and get your mind, body, and soul workout, vegan recipes, podcasts, all things Tarcia. Also, don't forget to subscribe, click and like the channel, share, do all the things. All right, y'all. I'm so excited that I have live in the building. Y'all ready for this today? You're not ready. You're not ready. Okay, so I have her book in my hand, but before I get here, Dr. K.E. Garland is in the building.
Yay! Ba, 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 ba.
So, hi, Kathy.
Hello, Tarcia.
How are you?
I'm well.
Thank you so much for coming.
I'm happy to be here in this beautiful space.
Thank you. Thank you.
Y'all don't know how beautiful it is until you're here. It's beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you. So she is the award-winning author of In Search of a Salve. Did I say that right?
Some people say salve, some people say salve, so I just let you say whatever. You know, it's like salmon.
Yeah.
How some people, you're not supposed to say salmon.
Yeah.
So somebody told me that.
So, In Search of a Salve.
It depends on where you live.
Memoir of a Sex Addict. Y'all. And for those that love Audible, it is on Audible. Go and either purchase the book or download it on Audible. Either way, you don't want to miss out on this treat. So we're going to talk a little bit about this book, and we're going to talk a little bit about Kathy, because she is a fellow adoptee, if you didn't know. She is a fellow adoptee. But I think what's very interesting is that she's just now realizing that she's been dealing with some adoption stuff. So tell me, what was that epiphany like for you?
So first, I think I have to say, well, first of all, thank you for having me seriously.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I have to say that I honestly didn't realize I was an adoptee until maybe a couple years ago. Maybe I'll say 5 years ago, when I heard the word adoptee. I had never heard it before. And when I heard it, I was like, oh, that's me. I'm an adoptee.
Now, let me clarify, because we do have another interview. We'll see how this goes. But she is not a late discovery adoptee. How old were you when you?
Yeah, so I was 10 years old when I discovered literally that I was adopted. Do you want me to retell that story and decide?
Yeah,
okay. So I was 10 years old, and because my mother was an English major, we had like books all over the place. So it was nothing for me to like grab a book off the shelf and just start reading the book, no matter what. None of them were inappropriate or anything. I read everything. So one day when I was 10 and I'm looking, because I can see it, because, sometimes those memories, you feel like you're like right there.
Yeah.
So I will never forget this. I had pulled out a book. I think it was called oh my gosh, now I can't remember what the title is. Something like What It Means to Be Adopted or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's written in the 70s. I was born in 73. I think it was 78. And I'm reading through this book, and it's explaining like adoption and how babies come from, parents, but sometimes your parents aren't your parents, but they are your parents. And basically explains this whole thing, but it's so super special. And because I now know that I'm a bit of an empath, I'm like starting to cry, because I'm like, these people, who are these poor people who don't know? You mean to tell me somebody had a baby and then gave the baby to somebody else? That is a terrible story. And so I'm like crying, and my adopted mother is standing there. in the corner, and I was like, closed the book, like, oh, that was bad. So she's like, why are you crying? I was like, and I tell her, the whole thing, like, this sounds like a sad story. And she was like, you shouldn't cry because you're adopted. I was like, what? Lady, what is going on? What, like, literally, who are you? Who are these people around me? What? And that was pretty much it. And by then I had kind of learned, because I used to cry too much, which like now I know is, and we can get into that later, but like just anxiety as a child. But I had learned by then that I just need to get on up and go to my room and cry by myself. But we never talked about it ever again. Ever.
No.
Mm-mm. Nope.
So we have this moment in the end.
The end. Yep.
So how are you internalizing this moment, like as a kid, especially since you, like you said now, it's anxiety.
Right. Yeah, I was super sad. Because like I think when you say internalize, I think that's exactly what it was. Like immediately I was like, oh, I must be like a bad person. So even though this book shows that it's, all types of circumstances and you can be adopted for any reason. And really this is a better path because, your parents couldn't take care. So even though they framed it like that, I was like, no, something must have been wrong that somebody would, like, and I didn't know the word abandon at the time, but that's what that is, right? That's what I was thinking is, oh, somebody abandoned me. And not just somebody, my parents.
That's so interesting because I found out early too. I never had
that thought. Yeah. But you found out like before, like you kind of grew up knowing.
I grew up, I was a little younger.
Yeah.
6, 7.
Yeah, I think that makes a difference. Yeah. I have little cousins who are, well, they're not little, but young adult cousins who've known since they were however old. And it makes like a huge difference in how you see yourself in the family because it's not like a lie. I feel like everybody lied to me.
Even at 10.
At 10, I felt like this is a lie. Y'all have been lying to me.
So does that affect how you move from day to day? Do you remember?
I wouldn't say that it did, but now I know that now I know that something was wrong. Something was terribly wrong.
And for those that are just listening, I just picked up the book again to show the ones that are looking. Go get the book because we're going to talk a little bit about her adoption, but she does an incredible job. And I know you said that you're not here to promote this book, but here I go. She does an incredible job at weaving her adoption story through this sex addiction story. And I don't even know how she crafted that. I don't think she even realized she was doing it.
So I can answer that because somebody else mentioned that recently. And I think what happened, I know what happened. So even that story that I just told you, every part of this book, I wanted the reader to feel what I was feeling in each moment. And so I wrote it that way because I wanted you to read it the way it happened. And then I found out I was adopted. Next.
And then I also want to, for those that are going to go to Audible, she is narrating her own story.
I did.
You hear this nice voice?
You're so kind.
Reading this story.
You're so kind.
Just be ready. Okay. When you wrote this book, why? What's your why? Why did you do this?
Yeah, I had a lot of whys, and one of them was that I wanted to tell a story about like family history. And so I'm really, really intentional and outspoken about being a Black person. And I don't think that there are enough Black stories, contemporary stories, that show that we can like have mental health issues, we can suffer from mental illness or live with, that we are adopted and that every adoption is different, that we can be sex addicts or have behavioral, because a sex addiction is considered a behavioral addiction, and we don't talk about that, right? So I think people would not argue that we know that Black people can be drug addicts or alcoholics.
Or gamblers.
Sure, but we don't hear about other things, I don't think, as much, right? And especially something nothing like this. So I want our stories to be seen, whoever the R is.
So do you want to dive into that sex addiction a little bit? Because I know I have people on the edge of their seats right now, like, girl, what?
Right, like what did she say? Rewind. Hitting that 15-second. What? What do you want to know?
I want to know, okay, first of all, what is the clinical definition of a sex addict?
Yeah, and so because I want to be clear, so even though I am like Dr. Garland, my area is not any of this stuff.
Right.
And so, like I said earlier, I read a lot. I've been reading a lot since I was a child. So I had to read and research to find out things on my own, but I'm not a psychologist or sociologist or anything like that, or therapist. So I'll just say, like in layman's terms, sex addiction is basically like a compulsion, just like most addictions, but it's a behavioral addiction in that it's not like, the best thing I can do is give an example of what Grandma Honey said. Grandma Honey is, go ahead. Okay. We weren't
Grandma
ready.
Honey is my favorite character in this book. Grandma Honey, if you're watching, hey girl.
You either love her or you don't, is what I found.
She's in the book. Grandma Honey is in the book. Grandma Honey is in the book. We'll leave it there.
Okay. So Grandma Honey is my grandmother who is still alive, who was 97 years old. Mm-hmm. And I gave her a copy of the book because I didn't want her to hear about it from somebody else, right, or see it, or I wanted her, and also because part of this book, the purpose was for me to, like, I'm tired of hiding and living lies, because there have been a lot of them. And so that was one of them. I was like, I'm not hiding this. Like, here you go. So anyway, Grandma Honey reads the book. One of the things she says to me after she reads it is, well, you were a good mother considering you was out there screwing everybody. And I was like, oh, okay. But see, that's because I say that because we hear the word addiction and we think it's the same for every addiction. So I was a sex addict, but it's not like being like on drugs, where if I was on drugs, I perhaps wouldn't be a good parent because drugs affects all types of things. Sex addiction is a little different. So my triggers, like you have specific triggers, the triggers are usually unresolved trauma, which I had, one of them being an adoptee and not being able to process it in in an appropriate way. There were other traumas that I had. I don't know if I should say, do you think I should say what they are, or?
Yeah.
Okay. So, my adoptive mother actually died when I was 16 years old. And that ended up being another trauma that I wasn't able to process because Grandma Honey was like, yeah, it's okay. Like not everybody's mother dies, but basically like, you don't have to cry about that. It's all good. So that was one.
Sweep it on the rug, keep it pushing.
Right. Yeah. So I had like a lot of suppressed emotions, mm-hmm, which can lead to sex addiction. So what happens is you suppress, and you think it's gone away, but it's not. It's still there. So then something can happen, like, I don't know, my husband doesn't pay attention to me, just to make it super simple. Let's say he's busy, like people are busy. Mm-hmm. For me, it's like a huge thing. What used to be, because I learned how. But in the past, it would be a huge thing. Like, oh, right, no, he's not paying attention to me. It's that abandonment stuff, right? He must be about to divorce me. Maybe he's gonna leave me. Like, and then instead of waiting for him to leave me, I just leave him.
Do you want to tell one
mm-hmm,
of your stories in the book.
So from which part? Because part 3 is the part where all of the, like, where I'm really like steep in the addiction. So
part 3.
So something from part 3. Oh, let's see.
Now she's not gonna give it all because you're gonna have to go read the book.
No.
She'll give just.
Let me ask this: do you have a, not favorite, but a part that stands out to you from that part 3?
A part that stands out for me, and I'm not sure if this was in part 3, was you being at a party. And
I'm like, which one? Which party? Because I used to party.
And right. And your friends.
Oh, that was part 2.
Oh, that's part 2.
Yeah,
okay.
But that's fine.
It was like.
Yeah. This with the DJ and all of that.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, this was before I was married, and I actually wrote this story for another anthology that should be coming out soon. So, and the name of the essay that I wrote that you're talking about is called "There's Some Whores in This House." So let me back up. Hopefully everybody is familiar with WAP, with that song. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. So
if not, pause it and Google it.
Right. So this song comes on.
And it's not worship and praise.
No, ma'am. No. So listen to it without the children around. So I was in my car, and WAP comes on, Cardi B and Meg, and I'm instantly triggered.
Because and how it starts off.
Like, is somebody, why is the song playing, right? Right, because they sampled the song that was a house song in the 90s called "There's Some Whores in This House." Now, in their song, it sounded like "There's some hoes in this house." But as soon as I heard it, I like had a whole visceral reaction. I really thought somebody was like in my car playing a trick. So I kept, and then I was like, oh, okay, somebody, why would they do that? Now I'm mad, right? Why would they remake it with this? But that's when I realized I wasn't over that part, right? Like I couldn't even hear this song. So what happened in the 90s, well, 93 or so, I went to a party with some friends, loosely stated friends, right? And at that party, I get super drunk, which was a pattern of mine. I would get like super drunk. And it's also a pattern of when you don't know how to deal with your emotions, you just drink a lot because you think that's going to help. And it, of course, doesn't. So anyway, get super drunk. I'm about 19 years old. End up going into a back room with this guy. And I end up like begging him to have sex with me. Like, please, why don't you? If you can just imagine, even me saying it, like, it sounds so sad, right? Or like crazy. But I'm begging him to have sex with me, like, please, please, please. And he's like, no, you're really nice, but no. I end up stripping, taking all my clothes off. Yeah, girl. Because I'm like, you are about to, like, nobody tells me, no, they're not having sex with me. This is crazy. Like, what's wrong with you? Take off all my clothes. And he's still like, no, not doing it. Well, in the meantime, I'm there naked. And a friend of mine burst through the door with a bunch of people, whoever were at the party, with her. And she's like, Kathy, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm good. All of this is while I'm just naked and he's just like fully clothed on the bed. Right, I'm having this conversation. Do you want to be here? Which is a good friend thing to do, right? Because you want to make sure I'm not, I was like, yeah, I'm positive I want to be here. Okay, because if you don't want to be here, we can leave. Oh, okay, no. I was like, I'm going to put my clothes on, come on out, leave. So I put my clothes on. They all leave. I put my clothes on. And I have to say, just to save some face, what I found out later is the guy actually had crabs. I don't know if I put that in the book.
I don't know. That is... How's that?
Yeah, the guy had crabs.
I'm hanging on your words like I've never read the book, and I've read the book.
So,
and the story is in the book.
Yeah, that's right. So that's what happened. I just want to say that part. I found out later on, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't want to." It was super responsible. So anyway, put on my clothes, I leave, and I came with like 3 or 4 other girls, and I was like, y'all ready? You know, we leaving. And they're like, yeah, we'll be there in a second. So I go sit outside, like on the stairs, in the apartment complex. Because it's up north. I'm in Michigan at the time. So, you know, it's covered and whatever. And it's wintertime. So I sit there and I'm waiting and I'm waiting. They never come. And so I learned like so many lessons that night. One is about friends, right? Like, who are your real friends? But I hadn't learned yet. So I walk back to the dorms.
And what kind of shoes did you have?
Oh my God. I had on like these little cute black booties. They were like these little cowboy booties.
Is it snowing?
And it was snow on the ground, and I ruined them because, so there's like a little salt. For those of you who don't live up north, what happens is if you walk in leather shoes in the snow, you get salt damage, not snow, right? So there's like this little white line on my boots. So I ruined my boots, go back home or to the dorms, whatever happens. Next day, I can hear friend A talking to another friend that didn't go. And she was just spilling all the tea about all the things. And so when I open the door, because it's a suite, I open the door, like, ta-da, hey. And, you know, she's like, oh, where were you? What did you do? And I was like, oh, I walked back home. And she was like, all the way from over? Yeah, I walked all the way home. She was like, oh, okay, well, we're going to another party tonight. You want to go? And I was like, yep. Where's the party? Where the party at? Let's go. So she was like, well, I didn't think you would want to go. Cause of course not. Right. Why would somebody want to go out again after the previous night?
Because we just had a conversation with you and you were naked.
Right. Right. So what we doing? That's what you do. Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up this story, and I'll finish it. But it shows, right, like that early when you teach people how to suppress, that's what I knew. Like, if I can't be emotional about being adopted, I can't be emotional about my adoptive mother dying, and then some other things occurred in between that too. If I can never cry about anything, that's what the adults are telling me. Well, yeah, I get to be 19. And the next day, be like, yeah, where is the next party? Let's go. Yep. So we go to the next party and I'm dancing, whatever. And I see friend A and she's over talking to the DJ. And I'm like, well, okay, maybe she's just being friendly. Girl, she gets on the mic. I want to dedicate this song to my girl. You know who you are. And there's some whores in this house. And that shit bopped so loud. I just remember. But once again, I was like, I'm not going to let it affect me.
And we're going to get on the dance floor.
Yep. And I danced. I was dancing with a guy and he was like, what's wrong with you? I was like, oh, that's my girl. Is she talking about me? Like, we're just going to get it all,
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just get it all out.
So I'm glad that you brought up. Y'all need a minute? And for those that grew up in the 90s, you know what song she's talking about. You know. Even down south, there was a bass version of it. There was a Miami version of that same song.
I have to look that up.
Yeah. So, yeah. I'm glad that you brought up being told to suppress.
Yep.
Grandma Honey.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say she's responsible?
Yeah, she's definitely responsible
for that.
Yeah, she's definitely responsible, and then more than just the when she told me that when my mother died, what I do in the book is show how I suspect that's what she taught her own children. So her 2 daughters, and then they passed it down to their daughters. And some people successfully do that. I tried to pass it on to my own daughters. And my youngest daughter was like, hold up.
That's my girl. She didn't know. You didn't know. Today, you know.
Yeah.
That's my girl.
Baby girl was like, we're not doing that. And she would look so hurt, like around 9 or 10, when I really, I would be trying to be like, yeah, like whatever, trying to raise her like I was raised.
Yeah, because that's
And
what we
you
do.
could see it in her face. And I was like,
That's what we do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being suppressing that adoption thing, but you didn't know it was that adoption thing.
No.
You didn't know.
No.
But what you were suppressing was losing your adoptive mom. You're also suppressing every single emotion because we're not showing emotions. We're going to get up. We're going to make it happen. We're going to get these grades.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is what we're doing.
For sure. That's why I'm a doctor.
Yeah.
Because it's easy. Because it was easy. And because that's what I did. Everything that I, like, as an adult, it shows. Like, that's how I was raised. Just keep getting and even with that, Grandma Honey loves to tell people about her granddaughter with her PhD.
When do you turn the corner and say, this has got to stop?
Yeah, so that's the story that I cannot tell, but I'll just say it is in the book. But every addict, from what I understand, who is in recovery has had a rock bottom moment. You might have more than one. I just have one. And it was huge.
Y'all get the book. Y'all get the book.
Yeah, it was huge. And I was like, but it wasn't, I think I was 41, 42. Yeah. Yep. And once it happened, like almost immediately, I was like, oh no, I cannot continue this. Yeah. Cannot. She's gonna promote this book.
I am. Because I'm going back to what I said originally. You didn't know that some of this stuff you was dealing with some adoption stuff.
Yeah.
So now that you've tapped into this adoption stuff, now, like, how do you process? Because I know you think about everything
all the time.
So now, how are you processing this?
Man,
on top of.
Let me.
Okay, she needs some water.
No. I need to.
I thought she was getting her water.
Nope. I have to. So, okay. So there's a study. It's Silverstein and Kaplan, 1982. They did a study. And it shows that there are 7 core issues in adoption. Okay. So before, and I mean, I've told you this before, Tarcia, like, I'm so glad that I didn't know this before I finished this book, because I probably wouldn't have finished it. I wouldn't have. As soon as I read these, I was like, oh, okay. Check. Yeah. Check. So I'm going to read these. 7 core issues in adoption: loss, rejection, guilt and shame, grief, identity. Shout out to Isaac.
Hey, Isaac.
Intimacy, and mastery and control. And when I read, I was like, oh, I have all of these issues. All 7. Yep.
How does that make you feel?
So on the one hand, it's a relief, right? Almost like when I read the sex addiction literature, it was a relief. I felt like, oh, okay, now I know what's like wrong. But now this is really a core. This is like at the root of everything. Yeah, this is at the root of everything. This is what caused everything. So even like the intimacy thing, what I've been telling people is that sex addiction is actually an intimacy disorder. So you can become addicted to sex because you have attachment issues. You have attachment issues sometimes when you're an adoptee. Yeah. Yeah. So it's, yeah, like this has really helped me feel, like, I hate to say better.
Why?
I don't know, because it's like, does it, well, yeah, I guess like a relief. Yeah.
Why would you not embrace feeling?
That's true. That's true. But then at the same time, I kind of feel like that little 10-year-old girl sitting on the floor, right? Do you know what I'm saying?
I do, but I still think that you should embrace feeling better. I
Yeah,
think you should embrace, because that's you evolving.
that's
That's
true.
you, like, I know what
Growing.
this is now.
Yeah, yeah,
Because a lot of people go through life, and because they just don't know.
no, you're
And
right.
so it's just like they deal with this stuff and they have no clue what it is.
Yeah,
I have gone through most of my life dealing with stuff,
yeah,
and not. It was just like, oh, this is just what it is. This is just who I am. This is just what I do. Oh,
yeah.
no, it's not. It's those things.
Right. You would never think to tie it. I guess that's the right. So I feel relieved, but also like, man, if I would have just known, then maybe I would have like, yeah, not even, but known to seek help from a specific type of whatever, right? Like therapist, or whoever. Because it's so specific to adoptees that you have to seek a specific professional, I would think.
Mm.
Because what happens is, so this is just 7 core issues in adoption, right? And this is not so you're where I'm an adoptee. I'll talk about me. So I'm an adoptee. I could have these 7 core issues, or I could not, depending on how I was raised. But if now I have like molestation in my background, I have this death of my adoptive mother. Then I have my adoptive father gave up his parental rights when I was 17, and he had no reason to do that. So all of these interrelated things can cause a person to have all 7 of these issues.
So you're bringing up therapy, which everybody knows. If you watch my podcast,
Yeah.
I push therapy. Pray and go to therapy.
Both.
Please do both.
Both
Do
and.
both. Do both. Did you start going to therapy?
Oh, no.
Do tell. Why not?
Oh, gosh. Okay. So don't do as I say, or don't do as I do as I say. You should go to therapy. Everybody should seek therapy on some level. Now, I did not go to therapy. And I want to say this, to be fair, there is a thing called self-therapy. It's a whole thing. And that's basically what I did with my book. So I'll tell you what my process was. I would read something. So I read about codependence. And then I would spend like a year going through, there's a checklist for that too. Figuring out how not to be a people pleaser, figuring out where do I end and somebody else begin? What do I like about myself? Codependents also have issues with identity too. So this is how I wrote this book. So I didn't go to therapy because I could never find a therapist that I felt was, for lack of a better phrase, good enough to help me, because I am going to buck back if you tell me something. I just am. And that's just my personality. If you say, I think this is blah, 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 I'm going to be like, let's think, you and me, not just me. And so, yeah, I had to.
Go to therapy.
Somebody out there understands what I'm saying. But you should go to therapy.
Go to therapy.
You should.
But you're not going to spend a whole year on anything. And you know you're not going to spend. It
Right.
sounds good on paper. You're not going to spend a whole year on nothing.
You do have to have a certain type of personality. And so also, I want to say, that's why it took me 9 years to write this too, because I went through each concept and was like, oh, okay, add this to my story.
Go to therapy. I'm going to reiterate.
I agree.
That.
Go to therapy.
Please go.
Don't do what I
She's
did.
a unicorn.
Yeah. Yeah. And Tarcia is the second person to say that. So for the back cover, I have someone who I now refer to as Auntie Marnie. And Auntie Marnie is a certified sex addiction therapist. And she held out for 30 full days before writing her blurb for the back cover. because she could not believe that she had read that somebody did not go to therapy. So, to Tarcia and Auntie Marnie's point, that is not something people do. So you should go seek professional help. Please.
Y'all, if y'all are just listening, please come and watch the video because you're missing the body language. You're missing you're missing it. Go to YouTube and watch the video, at least for this one, okay? Go ahead, sip your water. Do you feel like you are healed?
Yeah, so sorry. Like no one's ever like healed.
Okay.
Yeah. So you might be on a healing journey.
Okay.
Yeah. You might be better. And if you're on a journey, so I'm definitely not the person in this book anymore.
Mm-hmm.
A large part of my recovery has been to resolve unresolved issues. And I had to go through each one. Everything that I mentioned earlier, I had to sit with it. And I mean, actually sit with it, like feel and do what I couldn't do before. So if I couldn't cry at 10 about being an adoptee, I actually sat and just like would weep for the loss of my birth mother and birth father, of that relationship that could have been, which is a part of healing. But I don't think I would ever say that I'm healed with an ED. Yeah.
And she does get into the whole thing with her birth mom and her birth father.
Yeah.
It's in the book. It's in the book.
And I'll even, if I have, do I have time to talk about my birth father?
Yes.
So this is a great, I think, segue into the healed thing, right? So I met my birth father in 2018.
Well, she looks just like
yes.
You found her face.
It was undeniable. 2019. Okay. So we haven't really developed a relationship. Like I can call him, he'll answer the phone, but it's not like, oh, I can't wait to talk to this person. So anyway, conversely, his other daughter, my sister, who is one of my best friends in the world, we met in 2018, and his other daughter, who was born 2 months before me, so that should tell y'all why I'm adopted. Anywho, she and I are like really good friends, and I'm cool with. She has 3 children. One of them graduated high school last year. Never in a million years did I even think about. I forget that she even has, that we share a father, and then she got a whole mom. And so she was like, yeah, my mom and dad will be there. And I was like, what? Immediately. So that's when I called, like I told my husband, I was like, oh, they're going to be there. So you need to come now so you can be my backbone. Because I already knew this is about to be a whole thing. Because side note, and not surprisingly, my father's wife has a lot of issues with my existence. Mm-hmm. Okay. But she tries to do her best. So that's 2023, the graduation. And we also have a younger sister, and the younger sister and I are not cool. Okay. So all these people and me, my husband, at this graduation, and something happened where I was super triggered, and it just went downhill very quickly. Now, not as quickly and not as horribly as it would have been in the past, but I used alcohol to cope. Mm-hmm. But that was about it, just so that I can get through the weekend activities. But my point is, so yeah, like, am I healed? I don't know. Yeah, if I don't have to go to a graduation where my birth father is there, I'm good. Otherwise, yeah, I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, it just depends. Yeah. But seriously, like, but I would never, it's not like I don't engage in activities like I used to. Most definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, is there anything that you want to share
Mm-hmm.
with our fellow adoptees? And I mean anything. Usually I get real specific in this question,
Mm-hmm.
but you're such a wealth of knowledge. Like she is a self-therapist.
Right. I need to add that to my
Add that
to my business card.
Anything. What would you tell them?
No, I would still say, I think you asked this before, and my answer is the same. Like, do not allow, this is for adoptees, do not allow people to tell you how to feel about your experience. And I mean it like going both ways. So I know that there are people out there who had horrible adoption experiences. And so they think, I think like their world is, their lens is clouded, right, by that. And they think everybody had horrible adoption experiences. No, that's not the case. And you don't get to tell those people that they should feel a certain way, or that, or even try to convince them that they have an issue, even if they might have one. It's not your job to do that. Everybody gets to feel how they want to feel. But also with adoptive parents, I think it would be helpful if you would ask the adoptee how they felt every now and then. Yeah, just ask them. And that's what I wrote recently. And I really believe that. I don't think people ask adoptees enough, like, how do you feel? Because the assumption is that you were saved and you must feel fine. You must be great.
Mm-hmm.
When I've just shown you that you can have something that people, and I feel like I'm talking a lot, but
no, you
okay.
are not. You are
so
fine.
So even like for me, for example, people assume that I had like a great, I didn't have a terrible life,
Right.
but I grew up on the west side of Chicago in the hood. That is not what most people think of when you think about adopting a baby. You think about being in a middle class home, with two working parents. My mother was disabled, and my father had only a high school diploma, and he was a pharmacy tech, not a pharmacist. Go look up the difference. A pharmacy tech. That's the person who puts the pills in the thing.
And you mean your adoptive?
My adoptive parents. That's who they were.
And it's so funny how our stories parallel.
Yeah.
Because I was born to a family that was on the west side of Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
yeah, and so you have to know, like, I don't want to shout out to the west side, because I always tell people, I say, like, if I'm ever famous, I'm always shout out the west side, because it gets a bad rep. But it was the hood. It was Central Park and Chicago Avenue, and it was not, like, it was so bad they didn't want me to play outside, because who knows what might happen. So that's not like the typical adoption story, is my point.
right.
And I think we need to allow for, like you are, like a range of stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's something, and thank you for bringing that up. That's something that I don't like, is when people say, this is what adoption is, and everybody needs to think this, and everybody needs to feel that. Right. And everybody's story is different.
Totally different.
Some are good, some are nightmares, some are in between.
Right.
Some are, and like you said, come on the Adoption Journey podcast, because it's a storytelling platform, and we're helping people because everybody needs to hear all these different perspectives. Yeah. I want to thank you for coming.
Thank you.
To the studio in person.
You all have to come to the studio.
In person. In person. And on that note, bye, family.
Journey, journey, on, journey, journey, on. You need a pie, what they cook good? Oh yeah, what the store?